So for more on this story, I want to now bring in Maria Gavounelli. She's Director of Refugee and Migration Studies Hub and a Professor of International Law at the University of Athens. Maria, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So first, I want to begin with your reaction to the deaths of all these migrants and what's being called, of course, the worst disasters of its kind in recent memory. What goes through your mind when you think about what's taken place here?
Horrific scenes and unnecessary deaths. What is perhaps the most incredible and the most deplorable aspect of it all is that this was waiting to happen. And it's going to happen again unless we do something about our migration policies. And that, to me, that is actually the most heartbreaking of it all.
You say waiting to happen. What do you mean by that?
The Mediterranean is a very, very difficult route. It's a very deep sea. It's far away from the south to the north. A number of people, many thousands of people from the global south would like to move on to the global north. And the easier way to do it is actually crossing the Mediterranean. Why is it the easier road? Because, believe it or not, there is no lawful way to reach the European Union. There's no way you can apply to a consulate or an embassy or something. So if you are a young person who would like to have aspirations to a better life and anything along those lines, there's really nothing you can do but to go out there and seek one of those amazingly unfit boats and traffic yourself into Europe. This is simply unacceptable.
Let's speak a moment about the boat that is being used here, the methods that are being used here. According to the UN Migration Agency, the trawler boat that was used in this particular case may have carried as many as 750 passengers. How concerning is that when you think about the conditions that these people are traveling in?
Beyond concerning. When we're talking about traveling at sea, we do have rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations are usually inspected at the home port. What are the possibilities of any home port along those lines inspecting the seaworthiness of the ship or the way, the condition passengers were on board? Whether that comes from Libya or originally from Egypt, it's quite clear that this has not been the case. And imagine another aspect as well. Women and children were packed in the hull, and only the more robust men were allowed on board on the upper echelons of this ship. Should we talk about the gender aspect of migration? There has been not one woman survivor. There have been perhaps up to 100 children lost. Isn't that heartbreaking, or is it that infuriating at the end of the day?
I imagine anyone would say it's both, of course. And to that point, when you talk about broader solutions here, part of what we're reading is that the number of detected migrant crossings through the central Mediterranean have, in fact, to the European Union, have more than doubled in 2023 compared to the same period last year. So what then, when you speak of some of the solutions, some of the broader aspects that need to be looked at, what kind of immediate changes can be made that may prevent these numbers from going up and these tragic situations, as you've described, from unfolding?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that there's nothing immediate about that. There are a number of things that we can do, but the problem would still be there. One part of the problem, our search and rescue rules were actually made for situations that resembled the Titanic. They are not fit for purpose for migratory flows. There's been now an informal European contact group on search and rescue to tweak with the rules and make them more fit for these particular circumstances, but these are really short-term kind of adjustments. We do have a serious problem in the northern side of Africa. We have more and more unstable societies. We have a civil war in Sudan. We have issues of climate change further south in the Sahel. People are moving, and moving is part of the human condition. It's almost impossible. You cannot actually outlaw migratory flows. So unless we come up with a robust and comprehensive system for asylum and migration in Europe in the long term, we simply cannot address this continuing challenge. We have been talking about that in Europe for almost 7 years now. And ironically enough, just at the beginning of this week, there has been a political compromise, and we had finally the mandate for to proceed with the process. But it was a mandate to proceed, not a mandate to decide. So imagine how much more time it would take to arrive at a joint position that would actually be safer for the people who would like to come to Europe, but also fairer to the European countries, because countries like Greece and Italy and Spain suffer at this point the whole burden of the arrival of thousands of people, or even the additional worry and care for rescuing people at sea. So the delicate balance that is out there is much more delicate than one would easily believe. And clearly, there are no easy solutions.
Maria, thank you so much for joining us on this topic today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Maria Gavonelli is the Director of Refugee and Migration Studies Hub and a professor of international law at the University of Athens.